All right, let's talk about something that I think drives all of us a little bit crazy. It's that huge, frustrating gap between what we know we should be doing and what we actually end up doing. I mean, you've been there, right? You read the book, you watch the inspiring talk, you get totally fired up. You know the 5 steps to being happier or healthier or more productive, and then nothing. Nothing really changes. So what is going on there? And here's the wild part. This is not a new problem. This isn't a modern, self-help era issue. We're talking thousands of years ago. The villain of the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata, basically says the same thing. It's this moment of brutal honesty where he admits, I know what the right thing to do is, but I can't make myself do it. And I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I can't stop. If that isn't the human condition in a nutshell, I don't know what is. So this thing, this universal struggle, it deserves a name, don't you think? Let's call it the knowing being gap. It's that giant chasm between our intellectual understanding and our actual lived experience. So let's just break this down. On one side, you've got knowing. This is the world of ideas. It's reading the books, getting the concepts, making those big plans and resolutions. And on the other side, you've got being. And this is where the rubber meets the road. It's actually living those ideas day in and day out. It's consistent action. It's seeing your life tangibly change. And way too often, there's just this giant empty space right between the two.
So how do we even begin to bridge this gap? Well, let's start with a really radical, kind of big picture answer that comes from a very ancient school of Indian philosophy.
We're talking about Advaita Vedanta, and the core idea here is something called non-duality. What that means basically is that your true self, your absolute core essence, isn't this struggling, flawed person you think you are. It's actually already perfect, it's already divine, and it's already one with the ultimate reality of the entire universe.
So what does this philosophy have to say about our knowing being gap? Well, it does something pretty incredible. It just erases it. It flips the whole problem on its head and says, what gap? From this perspective, true, deep, profound knowing is the same as being. The very instant you truly know your real nature, you are that nature. There's this classic story that explains it perfectly. Imagine a lion cub gets lost and is raised by a flock of sheep. It grows up completely convinced it's a sheep. It bleats, it eats grass, the whole deal. Then one day, a wise old lion finds this confused cub, drags it to a still pool of water, and makes it look at its reflection. In that one moment of knowing, that aha moment of seeing I am a lion, the cub doesn't have to go to lion school. It doesn't have to practice roaring. It just is a lion. It always was. The knowledge itself was the complete transformation. Okay, but hold on a second. That's a really profound and beautiful idea. But it brings up a huge practical problem, doesn't it? If all it takes is one moment of knowing, why do we still see such a disconnect in our actual behavior?
Exactly. If enlightenment is just flipping a switch in your mind from I'm a sheep to I'm a lion, then what about all the day-to-day stuff? What about our temper, our bad habits, the way we actually treat people? This leads us to 2 different ways of looking at this whole process. There's the paradigm shift model, which is all about that one big moment of realization. But then you've got the ethical manifestation model, which says, hey, that's great, but that realization has to show up in your behavior. It needs to be embodied, because if it's not, you risk becoming what one teacher cleverly called the annoyed enlightened person. You know the type. They say they've realized the secrets of the cosmos, but they still get angry if you put too much sugar in their coffee. And this is where the great Swami Vivekananda comes in. With such a beautiful, elegant synthesis, he said that religion is the manifestation of the divinity that's already there. You see? It's both things at once. It's recognizing the divinity that's inside you, that's the paradigm shift, and it's making that divinity real in everything you think, say, and do. Okay, so if the goal is to manifest this knowledge, to actually live it, how in the world do we do that? For this, let's turn to a brilliant analogy from modern psychology that gives us a really practical path forward. The psychologist Jonathan Haidt came up with this powerful image. He says to think of your mind as being made of 2 parts, a tiny rider on top of a giant elephant. The rider is your rational mind, your intellect. It's the part that reads the books and goes, yes, I should absolutely meditate every day. But the elephant, oh, the elephant is everything else. It's your emotions, your deep-seated habits, your gut instincts. It is vast, it is powerful, and honestly, it usually has its own agenda.
And right here, this is the absolute key to everything. You cannot reason with the elephant. The rider understands logic, arguments, and facts. The elephant does not. The elephant understands one thing and one thing only:
consistent training.
So how do we train this massive, powerful part of ourselves? We do it through practice, through repetition. This is precisely what all those spiritual practices are for. Things like meditation, or selfless action, or devotion, or just building a little more steadiness in your daily life. They aren't meant to convince the rider's already on board. These practices are designed to slowly, patiently, and consistently train the elephant.
This quote from the disciples of a great spiritual master just nails the point. Even after they had these profound, life-changing spiritual breakthroughs, the big paradigm shift we talked about, they didn't just kick back and relax. Nope. They dedicated themselves to intense daily practice. Why? Because they understood. They knew their rider had seen the destination, but now came the hard work of training the elephant to actually walk the path. They had to make that divine gift truly their own.
So, all of this brings us right back to our original question. What is the secret? How do we finally close that gap and start walking our talk? Well, the answer is this. It's not enough to just know the path. That's the rider's job, and it's the easy part. The real work, the work that actually changes your life, is in training yourself day after day to actually walk it. That's how we close the gap. Not with one big flash of insight, but with the patient, consistent training of our own inner elephant.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. For a moment, forget about everything you know you should do. Put the rider aside and just ask yourself this. What elephant in your life, what habit, what emotion, what impulse needs just a little bit of training today?